Hey folks, happy 2024. Hopefully this is going to be a better year. The end of 2023 was not good for Mr. Tolly, believe me. I contracted pink eye, which led to bronchitis, which led to a low-grade pneumonia. Got rid of all that, still have a little bit of a cough. I've been out of the shop for about a month. Threw my back out before that, threw it out again. My knee is doing worse. So I'm just in pretty rough shape lately. But I'm back in the shop after being out for about a month. So here we are. I have another PP holster. This one has this flap missing that stitches on the back here. Now the last one we had, those holes were left empty and they had stitched it on here, which worked for that holster, but it was not the correct way to do it. So we're going to stitch that back on correctly. Make a new closure strap for it. Once I have that on, I'll be able to take some measurements and make a proper closure strap for it. That should be pretty easy. But this one also has some condition issues. We'll have to wet form a magazine pouch for it. So let's get it on the bench. I'll show you how I'm going to take care of that, how we're going to address all these issues, and we'll get after it. Alright, so you don't have to make forms out of leather or wood. This is Kydex or something on that line. I don't remember exactly what it's called. Holstex, I think it is. I buy these from, where is it? Holstersmith.com, I believe it is. And these are like offcuts that I get. This is a form that I use for making belt loops or belt keepers. And that's all that is. It's a few layers of it super glued together. Just super glue. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. And put it into shape. Finished. I can make 5 or 6 of them at a time on here without any problem. And these work great if it's something that you use a lot. I do enough belts that it paid for me to, make one permanent. This will last me the rest as long as I make belts. So usually it's temporary things that I do out of leather. I'd best go by the one that I've got to copy here. Because this very nearly fits in there. Now I'm going to overhang the top and the bottom. I'm not looking for an exact fit here. So I want to be oversized. And I'm just going to start out, let's put a lid on this so I don't spill it everywhere. I'm just going to start by forming the crap on my hands. I don't know how my hands get so dirty sometimes. But I'm just going to start out using my hands to do the forming. Make sure you trim your nails because your fingernails are going to leave marks, especially in wet leather. I worked a lot of it with my hands, my fingers, just kind of rolling over the edge. Because that's where most of it's got to happen, is right at the curve here. And then we've got to work the bottom. Sometimes having a tool to do that for you helps out. This is just a, I don't know, I don't even remember where I got it. I might have got it at Tandy. I'll leave a link for it in the description. All the tools that I use, I usually try to leave a link for them or something. This thing's just a tool that you can, I don't know, it does everything. It's a creaser, it's a burnisher, it's a bone folder. It's kind of a multi-purpose kind of tool. And I love multi-purpose tools. And the bottom's not super tight, but like I said, this kind of tapers off here. And it's not real tight at the bottom on the holster. I don't know if the camera will pick that up at all. So I think I'm okay with that. Not being super tight on the bottom. It's pretty good. Now at this point, if I wanted to, I could take a piece of leather and lay against here. I could cut it around this edge and lay it in here, and take a stapler and staple it down to a board if I wanted to, just to kind of help hold that form. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little break, let it sit for a little bit, so it can kind of start to dry with the form in there, just where it's sitting right now. And I'll come back in a little bit. It's picked up a little dirt from my hands and from... I need to have another one of these that's just for forming, that I use just for forming, because this happens all the time. I keep forgetting it. So I got to get another one that I use just for forming. And I think I've got a really nice start here to a magazine pouch. The worst part about this is I'm going to have to do another one for another holster here. That'll be coming up, which you guys are going to like, because it's something that you don't see very often. Matter of fact, this is the first one of these other holsters to cross my bench. Alright, so it's holding its shape really well. I'm happy with that. I'm just kind of going to leave it, I guess. Some people say that you have to use warm water. Some people say you got to use soapy water. Some people say you got to use distilled water. You can use just regular tap water. It doesn't have to be warm. This was sitting on the floor of my shop here that's cold. And it's just cold. It's distilled water because I use distilled water for stamping when I'm carving and stamping leather. So that's the only reason I use distilled. A lot of times when I do something like this, if I'm seeing something that doesn't quite look right, I will stitch it in and see what doesn't look right. Now to me, right off the bat, what doesn't look right is the bottom here. Just because this looked like it was angled at the bottom doesn't mean that it was. The stitch holes weren't really so much angled. They were actually, they were a little off down here in the bottom, but not really. Once I got to looking and punching them in there, it wasn't really angled at the bottom. So I think I'm going to redo my form and flatten off the bottom, or just flip it around. I shouldn't have stuck it in there because now it don't want to come out. Oh well, when I cut it off it will. So it doesn't, with the stitching there, it doesn't look like it had an angle at the bottom. It looked like it was flat. So I'm going to remake this. I'll just do this end so it's flat, which is kind of why I do these oversized. And I'm going to redo it. And that's all there is to it. I kind of made a rhyme there. Oh, there we go. I forgot to trim my fingernails. I got a little nick in it here. I saved you some of the yakking while I was doing the forming on it. Just because I didn't think you'd want to hear it all again. But I made it a little tighter down the corners here. A little tighter down across the bottom and flattened her out a little. I did make it a little more curved over here because the original one has just a little more curve here. Don't know why, don't ask. I assume that it's because because that's where your bullets would be pointed. The tip of your bullets would be up this way. So that's why I did it that way, just because the old one was that way. So anyone that's been hanging around my channel for a little while knows that I've talked about order of operations. That's the order that you reassemble stuff. Because if you don't do it the right way, you're going to have problems in the end. I wanted to get this belt loop on first because there's stitching that's inside here. I don't want to do that when I can't open it up and just reach right in and get it. You know, let's make it as easy as possible. So next I'm going to put the magazine pouch on because there again, all that stitching comes through here. Pretty simple. This one's actually got a crossover at the top here, so it does kind of a little weird bit, but that's okay. We're just going to allow it to do its weird little bit. Good. Magazine is on there. I trimmed a little too close over here. Should have been a little wider, but other than that, it looks pretty darn good on there. I don't have the exact mag for it, but I slipped in one of my magazines for my one of my carry guns, and it slid right in there. That's for a 380. So these were a 380 or a 32 usually. So that fit good. Next I'm going to stitch this piece on, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stitch the perimeter back up, being very, very careful there, because the perimeter is where a lot of this leather will get kind of iffy, we'll call it. It gets a little easy to pull through if you're not careful. So I will go ahead and stitch that before I put the little tab on there. But this has to go in at some point, and this is, being that there's stitching down here, I don't want to have to pull on this after it's stitched. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in now. I'm going to start my stitching at the bottom. Short needles might have made this a little easier. I'm in the wrong hole. That's more like it. Now that we're started, seems like getting that first one down is half the battle. I'm paying attention to which direction my holes go, and they're slanting this way. So when I pull this, I want to pull it up, and I want to take this needle over the top and then through. And that'll help me keep the angle to the stitch. Not that you really need to on this, because it's just going to fall into the existing groove anyway. But it helps. I've been surfing around online trying to find a motorcycle. My trip when I went down to Colorado last summer to visit with Barnow, we went kind of cruising around and had a pretty good time. He let me ride his XT600 Yamaha. I used to go dirt biking quite a bit back in my younger days. I really miss riding the trails and just getting on the gravel roads and cruising around. And up north in Minnesota here, we got a lot of logging roads and stuff that are open to motorcycle trails, motorcycles and four-wheelers and such. So I'd like to head on up there one of these days and go play. Maybe have Barnow come up here, do a little fishing while we're up there, because there's some really nice fishing up that way. And there's a couple of spots I know of where you can only get into them on a dirt bike. Anyway, look at this stitched on. I'm sure I don't need to bore you with that. You've seen me sew plenty. I want this to come out in between the layers here to tie it off. Let's see if I can make that happen. Not bad at all. I did find a funky spot in this flap though. That down in there nice. And that is the funky spot. Gosh dang it. It really sucks. It's just real weak here. And unfortunately there isn't much you can do for it except make a new piece. I don't want to make a new piece because, you know, this is the one that's got the markings on it. So I want to keep that. We're just going to go with it, and if it starts looking too bad, I'm going to have to figure something out. Let me figure something out here. It's just, what happened is it just pulled through a couple of holes here. So I got to figure something out there. Well, after thinking about it for quite a bit here, and noticing there's other places along here, you can kind of see along the edge there, it's a little cracked. Well, those are mostly places where it's about ready to bust through. There's another spot right in here in the middle there that it did. Or right about to. It hasn't yet. It will. And once it's stitched down, I probably don't have to worry about that. But the ends, I've got one hole on this side and two on this end. I got to do something about it, and there really isn't much that you can do. What I think I'm going to do is skive the edges of this little strap real thin and just kind of lightly glue this in. And once it's stitched in, I don't think you'll really notice it's there. That's kind of my hope. It's about the best thing I can think of to do. But I have to let the dye dry on this, so it'll be tomorrow before I get after it. But I'll skive it real thin on the edges, so that it just kind of lays in there a little bit and does its thing. Alrighty, I think I said I had to figure something out here, because this was just a little fragile up on the ends here, and it was starting to break through. So what I did, well, and it's breaking through in a couple other spots as well, so I needed to do something there. And what I did is, oh well, it'll show up, I just cut a very thin strip of leather and put in there. It's just probably, I skived it down to about 1 ounce, so it's not even really going to be noticeable in there. At least that's the hope, but you'll never even see it. You might see it right here in the end. I don't think you'll see it back here. And I just kind of glued that in. Well, there we go. So I think it turned out pretty good. The reinforcement was just what I needed in there. You can't see it. You'll never notice it in there. I mean, you'd be able to see it here if we were gonna. I suppose you can, just a little teeny bit. Not really. It's just pretty tough to see in there. From this side, I can't see it at all. You won't see it on the camera because that's just the way that is. And as I was sitting here doing all this stitching, I think I am going to remake that piece. There's just something about it I don't like. It's just a weird piece of leather. So I think I'm going to dig around and see what else I got. Because this should be like a 4 to 5 ounce. So we're at the hard part here, up under here. Kinda, hope I can keep this in camera. It's easy enough to get the needles through. Just I have to bend that leather back a little farther than I'd like to. It is what it is, though. Not much I can do about it. So far, so good, though. So now I'm just going between the layers here. And that's where I'm going to tie off. Well, there you go. Hopefully you can see that. Came out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. All I've got left is to stitch this on. I trimmed this a little bit, and I think that I like the way it's a little narrower at the top, but it made it too narrow at the bottom. Probably still be okay. So this crossed over at the top here. That's what I'm going to do. Well, there we go. It's another one. It's done. Here's our tab for closing the lid. Came out pretty fair. It doesn't. I may still have to remake that. It's still bugging me. It's a little too shiny. But as for the rest, we're doing pretty good with that. It looks good. And I'm ready to send that back. I'm ready to be done with it. I fought a lot with this magazine pouch. I fought a lot with that. I made 1, 2, 3 of them. I made 3 of them. I had to make my own form because I didn't have a magazine or anything to go with. So I had to make a form for it. But I think it came out pretty good. Looks good there. All my stitching looks great. I think I'm going to tint it a little bit. Just really lightly. Just to make it look like it's been there for a while. But it actually looks pretty good too. So you never know. I might change my mind and leave it alone. But there you go. If you like what you saw, drop a comment below. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to. We'll catch you in the next video.